Alright, so today we're going to be doing something I've been meaning to do for quite some time. We're actually going to be doing an objective comparison of NHLPA Hockey 93 and NHL 94, both on the Sega Genesis. These are two of the all-time greatest hockey games ever made. Certainly among the greatest hockey games ever made on a 16-bit console. One of the great debates we've had in video game lore over the last 20 years. By the way, did you know that NHLPA Hockey 93 is actually 20 years old this year? Amazing. So anyway, yeah, like I was saying, over the last couple of decades, there's been a debate over which one of these games is truly the undisputed king of 16-bit ice hockey. And before we get into my review, in which we try to gauge an objective winner between the two, I just want to talk about them for a bit. I'm kind of biased here when I say that NHL 94 on the Sega CD, which not a lot of people own that system and even less people played the actual game, is probably my all-time favorite video game ever on any console or any system ever in history. So let's get that out of the way early. Secondly, you may have played these two games on the Super Nintendo, but I have to kind of tell you they're actually not the same game. They were developed by different developing houses. So even though they have the exact same name and empirically they do look alike, they're totally different games. They play differently. They have different tweaks to them. They're nowhere near as good, I think, as the Genesis version. So let's kind of forget about those for the time being. Now, with these two games, to determine a winner, we're going to be reviewing them based on 4 criteria. We're going to be using audio, visuals, challenge, and ultimately gameplay to decide a winner. So first off, we're going to talk about it in terms of audio, and I think in this scenario, it's pretty much a clear-cut decision. Actually, no, it isn't a clear-cut decision at all. It's actually very hard. I think that overall, the sound effects and probably the in-game music in NHL 94 is superior to the sound effects and in-game music of NHLPA Hockey 93. But I don't think really that it's enough to kind of give it an edge over NHLPA Hockey 93, primarily because, damn, do I love the theme song in NHLPA Hockey 93. I think that's one of the greatest, most underappreciated theme songs in the history of video gaming. And I think overall it does have a lot of good sounds to it. Some of the sound effects I prefer in NHLPA Hockey 93 to NHL 94. Basically, they're both all-time classics in terms of chiptune music. I think both of the themes are absolutely amazing. So really, you can't really pick a clear-cut winner when it comes to audio. So in that department, I would say they are tied. Now, in regards to visuals, I think there's a world of difference, actually. Clearly, NHL 94 is the superior game when it comes to visuals. The animation's better. The color palette is, more vibrant. You have more shades. Just overall, it's a better game. And also like the fact that in NHL 94, the color of the ice actually resembles frozen water. In NHLPA Hockey 93, the water was like blue jello, as you can see, and in NHL 94, they kind of rectified it. But overall, yeah, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. NHL 94 is a better looking game overall on the Genesis. It's not really a quantum leap one way or the other, but I think as far as that goes, it's pretty obvious which one the winner there is. As far as graphics, I would give the nod to NHL 94. Now, with challenge, however, this is where things kind of get a little bit contentious. Overall, I'm going to say I think NHLPA Hockey 93 is a more challenging game than NHL 94, primarily because of the addition of the one-timer in this game, which, admittedly, it made the game a whole lot more exciting in some ways, because you always had that element of suspense. You drop out a one-time right off on a face-off, so you never know what can happen. But at the same time, it kind of made the game a little bit less strategic, made it less defense-oriented. I think the AI in NHLPA Hockey 93 was way, way harder than it was in NHL 94. And because of that, I just think that competitive multiplayer was just way more rewarding and involving with NHLPA Hockey 93. So if I had to go with one or the other, I would say that NHLPA Hockey 93 is the more difficult and therefore more challenging and rewarding multiplayer experience. So yeah, we are tied when it comes to objective criteria, which makes everything come down to, of course, gameplay. And this is where things are going to get really, really controversial. Overall, I think you'd have to say it comes down to a matter of preference and taste. I think that if you are a fan of a more offensive-oriented, a faster-paced, higher-scoring kind of hockey game, or especially if you're a fan of a solo hockey player game, because you have a really fantastic season mode in NHL 94. You have more teams. You have the actual players. We actually have the actual players in both teams. You have the actual NHL teams, logos, and likenesses in NHL 94. So I think if you're just going based on a more offensive game, not offensive, but more in regards to scoring game, I would go with NHL 94, and especially if you are a fan of long-term solo player experiences, I would also go with NHL 94. Now, if you're more of a fan of defensive hockey, lower scoring, more strategic, especially if you're a fan of multiplayer, then I think NHLPA Hockey 93 is the way to go. Just comparing them overall, if you're looking at things just quantitatively and qualitatively, I would say that if you had to pick one, NHL 94 is probably the more comprehensive title. You just have more stuff going on. The gameplay obviously is different, so I think it really comes down to preference, but there's just so much they added in NHL 94 that I think it's kind of hard to go back and play NHLPA Hockey 93. The controls are kind of retweaked. I like the way the physics are in that game. So once you've been playing NHL 94 for a while with the one-timer, and especially with the goalie controls, it's really kind of hard to go back to NHLPA Hockey 93. But, I think they both have their strengths, they both have their weaknesses, and overall, you really can't go wrong with either of these games. They're both awesome, they're both fantastic, they're both among the greatest 16-bit games ever made. And really, you really can't say one's empirically better than the other because they're both really, really awesome games. But if I had to go with absolutely one, I would have to go with NHL 94. Bow down to the king, baby. Bow down to the king.